Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. So, if you know me personally or you have any insight into my life as of late, you probably know that my wife has been on a bodybuilding journey for the majority of the last year. And in this episode today, I want to talk a little bit about that journey from my perspective and share some insights that I've had as a witness to all of her hard work for the last 10 months. Honestly, it's been a really cool process to be a witness to. I don't know if you know anything about bodybuilding, but I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast about this because it's inspired me and I think it's really cool. I've learned a lot about the sport, but the reason I wanted to do a podcast is because I've seen a lot of parallels to other things in life when it comes to discipline, the mental toughness, and just the pure grit that it takes to commit to something so deeply and remain dedicated to this whole process despite having challenges along the way. So, this episode is the one about bodybuilding. So, I'll tell you a little bit about how this all started. In spring of 2020, when COVID hit, we were spending a lot of time with our friends, Mark and Emily, for that first year when social interactions were very limited. And during that time, we would just have endless nights of conversations over dinner about everything and anything and a whole slew of ridiculous things. And during this time, our friend Mark, he got on the topic of bodybuilding and he was sort of teasing out this idea that he might train to compete in a show. Now, here's the thing. Mark is a former powerlifting champion. So for him, this really wasn't out of left field for him to be competing in a show. But for the rest of us, it kind of became this running joke. And at the time, my perception of bodybuilding was intense working out with restricted eating and a level 11 tan. I'd had a few friends who'd done it in the past. And so I was somewhat familiar with the process, but basically I had the stereotypical view of what bodybuilding was. But you fast forward a few more months and Mark is actually training for a show now. And because he's a persuasive man, ultimately, Leanne, my wife, decided that she would try to train for a show also. And so she hired a coach and she started to train and dip her toe into the world of bodybuilding. Unfortunately, around that time, she was still getting her body back into balance after her breast cancer treatments that she'd had in 2018. So chemotherapy is a brutal drug and it had done a number on her immune system and her gut health and her hormones. And so after a few months into the eating plan and the training, she just realized her body wasn't in a place to be doing all of this yet. So this was all back in 2020, 2021. This last August, so 2 years later, we're on a flight home and she said, honey, I think I want to try to do a bodybuilding show. And I knew this idea had never really left her mind. She talked about it a little bit and she described it as something that she felt like she wanted to do. You get these ideas in your mind, these challenges that you want to take on. And then if something stops you, sometimes it just doesn't really ever leave your heart or your head. And so I knew that was how it was for her. And so I said, hell yes, like, let's go. I wanted her to be able to take it on. And so she started in early September with a new coach and went full on with her nutrition and workouts in preparation for doing shows this summer. There is a lot to this process of preparing for a season of shows, way more than I ever would have imagined. And to me, it's all really fascinating, mostly because the level of discipline is unparalleled. I really didn't know much about it, but to see her go through this entire process in the last year was incredible. I learned that these competitors in bodybuilding, they are true athletes. Each class of bodybuilding, each category of bodybuilding is looking for something very specific in terms of muscle tone and balance and development of different parts of the body. The posing required for each category, it's so technical and it's incredibly challenging from a mobility and a strength standpoint. I tried to get into some of these poses. It is so hard. And then to top it all off, for the category that Leanne competes in, bikini, they're all doing it in a pair of high heels. So this is not for the faint of heart, team. When you are living with somebody who's training for any type of athletic endeavor, you know that you can't really help but be in it with them to some degree, even if it's just by proxy. I mean, have you ever had a partner or a family member who is training for, say, a half marathon or a marathon, you know that you're talking about their training schedule and their runs and their meal plans and their inner workout fuel and all their little injuries. I mean, you are in it with them, and that's just the way it goes. It's kind of fun. With Leanne doing all of this, I just wanted to make the decision to be in it with her and learn about it as much as I could too. I wanted to do as many workouts with her so that we could spend time together, even though most of her workouts are like 5:30 to 6 a.m. and I'm not a morning person. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to show up and try to do this stuff with her. I really just love doing it. I love learning about the process. I loved going to the shows. I mean, the shows are freaking awesome. The energy at these shows is incredible. I think because you watch these athletes get on stage after 10 to 12 months of preparation, and it's just emotional. You know, you've got coaches there who are cheering on their athletes. You've got family members who've been in it with these athletes for the long haul, the majority of the year. And it's just so cool to see it all come to fruition on stage. To me, it appears that the athletes are pretty encouraging of each other. The environment is very friendly, it's a friendly competition. And there's a sentiment that you're competing with yourself ultimately, because you are the one who has to bring your best. It puts the onus on you. Like if you don't do the meals, if you don't practice the posing, if you aren't putting in the workouts, if you are off, there's really nobody to blame but you. So I'm going along with this process and I'm observing it all, and I can't help but filter this entire experience through my coaching brain. I can't help it. It's so fascinating to me. And there are a few particular takeaways that I wanted to share with you that I had gathered from this whole experience that are connected to the things that we talk about here on this podcast and very much connected to the big topics in the coaching world. To start, you'll often hear me say when it comes to having powerful impact that there are two things that are required: preparation and consistency. I say it all the time. We must prepare to be able to have a positive influence by taking care of our energy and our body, by paying attention to our sleep and our nutrition, to being mindful about our thoughts and our beliefs, our programming. We have to be prepared to show up in a powerful way, down to the habits and routines we keep. All these little things that we do, they contribute to us being prepared. And that preparation then allows for greater consistency in the way that we can show up and the impact that we can have. And I know that this makes perfect sense to you. I'm sure you've had weeks in your life where maybe you haven't slept very well, your schedule's been all over the place, your stress has been high, maybe you haven't felt prepared for your life. And that has probably created a lot of inconsistency in your energy, in your mood, in the way that you show up for work or your family. Consistency also means that you're doing something over and over again in a very routine way. It means taking the actions required every single day to get to your goal. That consistency, those small steps every single day, is what allows you to make huge progress over the course of 10 to 12 months to get to your goals, to achieve a tremendous amount in a short period of time. And damn, if bodybuilders are not the perfect example of preparation and consistency, I don't know who is. I mean, I was watching Leanne the last 10 months. I think she might have missed one day, if that even, of hitting her workouts. And her workouts included lifting and a daily step count of 10,000 to 17,000 steps towards the end of her training. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of miles every single day. Tack on cardio as she got closer to her shows, up to an hour of cardio a day when she was in prep. She didn't miss any of it. And trust me, like we traveled, there's a couple things that we had to do that we had to work around. We were in New York at one point and we were getting daily passes to gyms so that we could hit the workouts, so we could get the steps in, so she could get her cardio. She didn't miss. And this is not an anomaly in bodybuilding. She's not the exception. These athletes that compete, they show up and check off their goals every single day. And that's not even talking about the nutrition aspect. the consistency that is required when you are weighing food and counting macros to be able to hit your goals. Holy shit, it is unparalleled. You have to plan what you are eating, sometimes a day or an entire day and a half ahead, so that you can make sure that you have the food you need so you can hit your macros, especially if you're traveling or you are taking care of kids, or maybe you have an event that you have to tend to. It's so cool to watch as these athletes, they transform their bodies through their nutrition, but really it's through the consistency of it. I mean, this is a slow, progressive improvement over time, and it is wild to see with your own eyes what you are capable of doing just with consistency and dedication. The other element of preparation that I observed was that Leanne threw herself into researching the sport, from the nutrition to all of the supplements that you can use to optimize performance, to just daily habits that would optimize performance, to the flair, to the bikinis, to the posing, to the technicality of how they judge within each category, to what separates winners from the rest, to the nuance of the sport and the different categories themselves. I mean, every night she'd be sharing something with me that she learned. And it struck me how much time she was investing in being prepared mentally for her shows, not just physically, just by knowing so much and learning so much about what she was getting into. I mean, she was listening to podcasts, following different athletes online, getting to know who the big players and who the important judges in the sport were. It was such a good example of how to have powerful impact by putting in the time to make sure that you were prepared, committing to that preparation, and bringing consistency to that process. Leanne was so committed to every part of this process. There was stretching each night. There was posing practice. Of course, the workouts and the meal planning and the prepping, the actual eating the food, foam rolling, the mobility work, the research that was happening every single day, the check-ins with your coach, taking photos before and afters. I mean, all of this stuff takes so much time, and she was hitting all of it. And again, this is just what people do in this sport. She was not the exception. And it really is a testament to what these athletes go through. And it made me think about the level of preparation and consistency that I was bringing to different areas of my life. I mean, I'm watching her go through all this and I'm like, wait a minute, I should apply some of this to the things that I'm doing. In a way, it held me accountable to myself, to witness her being so accountable to herself. Now, is bodybuilding an extreme example of this? Yes, of course it is. But it had me thinking about how to apply that level of dedication to my pursuits. And I started thinking about and watching what some of the other people in my life were doing in dedication of their goals. Because I have a lot of people in my life who are doing incredible things. They're pursuing huge, audacious goals. Some of them are physical endeavors, and some of them are businesses or, just huge desires that they're trying to bring to life. And there are a lot of parallel behaviors that I want to name here that go under this umbrella of preparation and consistency. For example, carving out time for the work that is necessary. I mean, I was seeing this in real time with Leanne. She was carving out time for the work that is necessary, but I also started seeing it in my friends. I mean, they're so committed to their processes that they were saying no to other things. They were creating boundaries around themselves. They were protecting their energy and their bandwidth. They were making sure that they were carving out the time for the work that is necessary. Another thing was making the decision to go all in. I saw Leanne do that. She made the decision in August when she spoke to me on the plane, I'm going to go all in, and she stuck to it. And that was something that I was seeing in the people around me who were pursuing their big goals. They decided that they were going to do it. Regardless of the challenges along the way, they were going to get there and they were going to do what it takes. And I started to apply that to my life. Was I making this decision to go all in on my pursuits? Another behavior, researching and learning. I mean, it seems really obvious, but man, when you dive in and you start doing the research and you start learning about the things that you are pursuing, doesn't that make it easier? Doesn't that help you feel more mentally prepared? But I think a lot of people don't consider this as being a worthwhile way to spend your time. Another behavior, finding mentors that you can learn from. This one really resonated with me because I've always really relied on and counted on mentors to help me grow. I've had just great relationships with people who've I really wouldn't be where I am today without them. But seeing Leanne enlist mentors in her pursuit just reinforced this idea that you can speed up success by finding the right people to have in your corner. Another one was creating systems to help you be successful, planning ahead. This one is so crucial for people because if you don't have systems and routines built into your day, it's really hard to bring that consistency. It's hard for you to stick to your plan, especially when you have a lot of irons in the fire. I mean, watching Leanne try to juggle all of this stuff, she was planning ahead the entire week, and she had systems each day that she would rely on to help her be successful in this pursuit. The last one that really stuck out to me was setting mini goals on the path to a big goal. And this one is really cool because within bodybuilding, there are different sort of seasons that you go through. You go through a building season, then you get into a season where you're cutting, and then finally you get into prep as you're getting close to your shows. And they can look different depending on the athlete. But within each season, you have goals that you work towards. And having those mini goals on the path to your big goal, it makes so much sense. I mean, it's like your little milestones that you're hitting. And I think it's really essential when you're trying to pursue something that is huge. You have to figure out a way to break it up in ways that feel manageable, like little bite-sized pieces so that you don't get lost or overwhelmed by the big ending. And really, when you look at all of these behaviors and you layer them on any pursuit, that's a recipe for success. I love that there's so many parallels and that there are so many overlapping behaviors because it just goes to show like human behavior, it's predictable. There are ways that you can get ahead. There are ways that you can be successful that apply to any goal or any desire. You just have to get in there and put the work in. And then I look at the outcomes of this whole process. Leanne ended up doing 2 shows this summer. One was in Sacramento, California, and one was here in Salem, Oregon. The first show she had ever done was in Sacramento. It was incredibly competitive. Still, she walked away with a few medals. And it wasn't first place like she wanted, but an amazing outcome for a first show, especially one that was so competitive with the number of athletes that showed up. In the second show she did, she was able to walk away with 2 first place medals in different classes and great feedback for how she can improve for the next season. And I know how much she learned from these 2 shows, these 2 experiences. And I know that moving forward, she's going to train and prepare harder, smarter for the next season so that she can reach her big goals. I wanted to share this with you because it feels so relevant to what we talk about here on the show. I think about, God, what would happen in our world if people really embrace this idea of committing to something the way that I see bodybuilders committing to their sport, or any athlete probably? What would be possible if people brought that level of preparation and that level of consistency to their goals? I mean, what would be possible if we all approach things with a little bit more mental toughness, a little more self-discipline and grit? I think it's really interesting to consider. And while we can acknowledge not everything in life requires this type of approach, not everything in life needs to be hardcore with just tremendous self-discipline and, pushing yourself so hard. It's easy to see in this example what you can accomplish when you dedicate yourself to a pursuit in this way. There is true transformation. In bodybuilding, it might seem purely physical because you are literally judging the physical body. But I know that transformation goes way beyond the physical. And like any person in big pursuit of a goal, it changes you on every level: physical, mental, emotional. It's got me thinking about how I'm approaching my big dreams. And I hope that this conversation has you thinking about how you are approaching your big dreams. With dedication, with preparation, with consistency. Let's hope so. I hope this inspired you. Thank you for listening to this episode. And as always, thanks for being ready to impact. Thanks for listening to Impact Ready. I hope today's episode inspired you to own your impact and recognize that you are powerful. By elevating our energy and awareness, we can create exponential change in this life. If you enjoyed today's insights, share them with a friend and subscribe to the show for more. I truly appreciate you. Thanks again for being here.